Hello, World Wide Web. I'm Shado, the internet personality with the best hair. It's high time I took a sit back and enjoyed some of the classics. After all, the film industry is over a century old, and with how many things coming out today are just remakes and blatant rip-offs, it's good to know that you can look back at Hollywood's history and enjoy some great films that just so happen to be blatant rip-offs of remakes. Well, the more things change, the more they stay the same. We're going to be looking at the 1959 movie, A Bucket of Blood, starring Dick Miller in his only leading role from around 100 films. A Bucket of Blood came out 6 years after House of Wax, the remake of the 1933 movie Mystery of the Wax Museum. Now, I feel this movie is pretty well a rip-off, but to be honest, it doesn't take everything from House of Wax and stands on its own production pretty well. Though it does have a lot more in common with House of Wax than the 2005 House of Wax movie. That's another review. Of course, I have to mention this was a Roger Corman production. Now, Mr. Corman hadn't hit his stride quite yet at 1959, as this was only his 5th year producing movies, so this is only his 31st film. Still producing movies today, and has done more than 400 in his entire career, I had better get this review started before he's finished 3 more movies while I'm still yammering on. This is A Bucket of Blood. We start out with a long monologue by Maxwell, a poet, set to a lone saxophone, with a bass line coming from some inexplicable location to fill out the soundtrack.
Go ahead and sleep your bloody heads off. Creation is. All else is not. What is not creation is graham cracker.
We also see Walter Paisley, played by Dick Miller, working as a busboy in this establishment.
I heard it, Mr. Brock.
Thank you, Walter. I'm sure you did.
Bring on the multitude with a multitude of fishes. Feed them to the fishes for liver oil to nourish the artist.
That was word for word.
Is it? I've forgotten.
Yeah, I'd want to deny that too. I mean, fishes? Seriously? The plural of fish is fish. I know Scientific American magazine has taken to printing fishes, but I'll be damned if I'm going to let that slip. So here we learn that Walter is socially awkward and doesn't understand art so much as he tends to take everything very literally.
I thought you believed that life is an obscure hobo bumming a ride on a...
I do believe that, Walter, but I also believe creative living. To be uncreative, you might as well be in your grave.
And although every synopsis I've read for this movie refers to him as being nerdy, I really don't find his character particularly nerdy. I mean, honestly, with the way he takes things, he comes off more as autistic. He's not really, as especially later in this movie, his emotions do get a hold of him, but especially early on, he has a very simple, straight, logical way of thinking about things.
Oh, say, Walter, did you see anything of Frankie tonight when you went out?
I didn't see him at all.
Well, if you do, tell him I got a nice, fresh piece of halibut for him.
Tell him that? I mean, do you think he'll understand? He's only a cat.
Good night, Walter.
But we do get to see Walter's attempts at sculpting as he beats the crap out of a hunk of clay. But his frustrations, as well as his dinner, reach a boiling point and he snaps.
Frankie, shut up!
Oh, what's the matter, Frankie? How'd you get yourself stuck in a wall?
My guess? Shitty programming. Trying to free Frankie, he takes out a knife and... unsurprisingly, he quickly manages to kill Frankie, then, using his super strength, bashes the wall open to retrieve the cat. I know a lot of you are probably thinking that Walter's in pretty deep shit. I mean, he just killed his landlady's cat and bashed a hole in the wall of his apartment. Don't worry, it's okay. Oh, we do see her again. She even enters his apartment, but she doesn't mention anything about the hole, so I guess she's fine with that, and she never even brings Frankie up again. These lease agreements must have been pretty damn lax in 1959. And I guess Walter stood there in shock for about an hour, as it would appear that rigor mortis has already set in.
Poor Mrs. Swickett. got a nice fresh piece of halibut for you.
Are you sure he'll understand? I mean, he's dead! Grief-stricken, Walter comes to the next day, remembering Maxwell's poetic words.
Miserable deaths become the clay within his hands, that he might form an ashtray or an ark. Pray that you might be his diadem, gold, glory, paint, clay, that he might take you in his magic hands and wring from your marrow wonders.
Feeling that it would be a gift to immortalize the cat as a piece of art, Walter goes for the clay. He's going to need to do a bit more than just coat the cat in clay. I mean, clay needs to be fired at high temperatures to harden into ceramic. But that doesn't stop Walter as he shows up early to show off his art to Carla, whom it is obvious he is trying to impress.
Walter, it's very good.
Honest?
Honest.
What's it called?
Dead cat?
Dead Cat? That's its name?
Sure.
I would get on him for the stupidity of that name, but honestly, it's a lot more fitting than the name of this movie. That day at work, Walter is receiving amazing amounts of praise, with even Maxwell going so far as to openly praise his art.
As you pass through these yellow portals, I am sure you noticed on your right a small clay figure, and assumed this transfixed effigy to be the work of a master sculptor. And indeed, so it is. That master sculptor is in our midst. He is none other than Walter Paisley, our very own busboy.
Well, yeah, it feels pretty damn good when your work is featured and praised, but I'm pretty damn sure there's the 1959 equivalent of an internet troll kicking around somewhere who's gonna spoil all the fun. But as it's time for him to go, a newly found rabid fan breaches his personal space.
My cat?
It was the most wonderful, wildest, wickiest thing I've ever seen. Walter, take me away from here. Take me away to some cool blue place. Gas me.
I can't. I gotta go home.
Not successful in convincing him to take her with, she presents him with a token of her appreciation. Heroin! The fuck?! But it's no longer Walter's lucky day, as the undercover officer at the establishment notices the exchange and follows him home. He confronts him, and I have to admit, I love the writing of this exchange.
Who do you score from? Where do you buy your horse?
Horse?
Horse, junk, white stuff, heroin.
Is that what that is? I never seen any of that before. I always thought that was expensive.
Yeah, Walter, that can be real expensive.
Gee. Well, wasn't that nice of Naolia to give me that expensive horse?
Walter.
The officer tries to take Walter in, but the situation soon becomes too much for him to handle, and he...
Shoot me! Don't shoot!
Wow, he had an orchestra on his skull! But uh-oh, the landlady is knocking! So she comes in, but never mind the puddle of blood on the floor, or that your cat is still missing, or that big hole in the wall. Goodbye now! I can't play heavy metal music without the police showing up here, but him? He can kill the police, and the landlady's cat, and wreck the place, and no one seems to mind. But taking a pot, or a pan, I don't have enough viewers to worry about a semantics backlash. Taking a bucket to collect the falling blood, he... Wait. This is what the movie is named after? Of all the things that happen in this movie, this minor part of this scene that is not indicative of the rest of the movie is what the title comes from. You kidding me? That's about as smart as if Alien was named a bowl of spaghetti. And as he cleans up, Walter decides he's going to make a statue out of the dead officer. Okay, he might have been able to fire the clay for the cat in his oven. I'll accept that. But what the fuck's he gonna do with a full-grown man? But the establishment's owner, Leonard, discovers something about the cat. It does not land on its feet and is therefore a forgery.
Little fraud.
Actually, he finds out from one chip that it's a real dead cat. So the next day, he confronts Walter with the intent of making a fool out of him.
What are you gonna make next?
A dog, baby.
or a bird? How about a few dozen cockroaches from your room?
I got a new one.
Great. What is it?
Murdered man.
When do we get to see it?
Oh, anytime.
Unable to handle the gravity of this news, Leonard flees to call the police. However, he is approached by a man intent on buying the cat.
To make very sure that I get it, I'll pay you $500. $500 for the cat and the first look at his neck stuff.
And you can have it for the $500.
Oh, thank you, sir.
Now, understand, $500 in 1959 was the equivalent of $3,894.42 in 2012. You know, that doesn't exactly sound like enough to cover up murder. But Carla invites Leonard to come with to see Murdered Man, which she is very impressed with. Leonard, however, tries many angles in which to convince Walter to slow or downright stop making his statues.
It would be wrong to show his pieces one at a time. Dead wrong.
You're right. He should build a collection first.
Well, it would take you years to make that many statues.
But first of all, you've got to stop making these horrible statues. Maybe you can turn to freeform.
Walter, however, relishes his success in transformation from humble busboy to respected artist, and flaunts his newfound stature to the public.
Why is the busboy sitting here?
Ha! A troll! I knew it! Trolls were a lot cuter in 1959.
I don't like you.
Nobody asked for your opinion, Walter.
She quickly sours the scene, and the others decide to take up and leave before it gets ugly. She continues to troll him until he exits the scene in frustration.
Alice? You're obnoxious.
However, he lies in wait outside and follows her home. And of course, no one noticed him standing there in that ridiculous outfit. He proposes that he would like to use her as a model to make a female statue, and after agreeing on a fee, she comes with to his apartment to do business.
Put this around your neck.
You really have to appreciate the convenience of self-killing victims. Though this has to be the most disappointing death scene, as even for 1959, it's completely devoid of any believability. The next day, he displays the piece to his fellow artists, who are so struck with awe, Carla even kisses him. All right! The base! That night, a party is held in honor of Walter, as he is outfitted with a scepter, a goblet, a cardboard sheriff's star, and a paper Burger King crown with images of a hammer and a chisel. Funny, considering a clay sculptor wouldn't need those. Unless they really fucked up. And Maxwell delivers a poem written especially for Walter.
The bird that flies now pays later through the nose of ambidextrous apathy.
Which Walter doesn't seem to understand in his drunken state. Then again,
the highway of life cuts sharply through the shady ghettos and the ivy-covered tombs, and laughter rings from every time capsule in the star-spangled firmament. And in the deep freeze, it is the children's hour.
I'm sober, and I still can't figure out what the fuck Max is going on about. After the party, Walter hobbles down the street, drunk off his ass. He quickly decides that he must make something else before he is forgotten and ignored again. Fortunately for him, he stumbles into a workshop with one man standing all alone by a circular saw. Geez, if the victims were any more convenient, they'd be covering themselves in clay. Fortunately, this scene is a lot more exciting than the last, but since we don't know anything about this victim, it holds the least emotional weight. So Walter decides early the next day to show Leonard that the best way to take your mind off of a hangover is with decapitation. Leonard doesn't much like Walter trying to give him head, and begs him to stop making statues.
No more statues.
Why not? I gotta make statues, Leonard. You heard Brock, they want me to make them.
Have you ever thought of maybe not killing people? I know it would make for a shitty horror film, but you could go back to making statues of small animals, or hell, even inanimate objects with your cover normal shit in clay style of art. So Leonard changes the subject, insisting that they hold Walter's art show immediately.
I've decided to have that show for you, right away.
He certainly works fast, as the next scene over, the show is nearly ready, and Walter invites Carla for a word outside. Walter pours his heart out to her, but she rejects his proposal. I have to say, the writing here is pretty good, and...
That was because of your work. There's more to being in love with someone than just that.
Only seems a little contrived. But Walter has one last request to make.
Would you let me make a statue of you?
Would you really like to? That'd make me very happy.
Wait. Even with her not realizing that he intends to kill her, last time he used a female model, it was a nude statue. This is probably not the best way to show him you're not interested. But later at the art show, Carla notices something. With everyone who's seen that piece already, nobody noticed such a large amount of clay not covering that finger up before? I mean, come on, how do you not notice Oh. Okay, well, it was a naked woman, so... I guess they were just looking at other parts. She confronts Walter, and his matter-of-fact musings terrify her.
Oh, that's Alice. It's all right, Carla. Maxwell says it's all right. I made them immortal. Don't you see, I can do the same for you.
Soon after, everyone figures out that there are bodies inside the statues. What, do they have a collective consciousness? Either everyone knows or nobody does? But we get our big climactic chase as Carla flees from Walter and everybody else quickly joins in pursuit of Walter. Everything is going pretty by the numbers until... The fuck?
What was that? Nobody knows I'm here. Walter. No, they couldn't know. They're dead.
So either he's being legitimately haunted, or Walter Paisley is going crazy. Crazier. Leaving Carla behind, Walter flees from his pursuers and the voices in his head, heading back home.
I'll hide where they'll never find me.
By the time the others catch up, they find him dead, covered in clay from head to, upper chest. And that concludes A Bucket of Blood, a marginally well-remembered classic, though it went under the radar for a lot of us. But how does it sit with me? I know I opened this up with accusations of ripping off House of Wax, and you can't deny that a lot of the theme of this movie follows that one. Honestly, I feel it does enough things different that it does earn its recognition of being its own film. Walter Paisley as both the protagonist and antagonist make for an interesting angle, and while The Stuff advertised itself as if it were straight horror, this movie's trailers freely told it to be a horror comedy. As such, the dark humor at work in this film have aged very well as the satirical portrayal of beatniks. What may be the biggest flaw in this film is that, like most Roger Corman films, the budget was dreadfully low. Dick Miller even said that if they had the money to really do this concept justice, this could have been one of the great classic films, and for all we know, he was right. The acting and direction in this film are wonderful for both the horror and the comedy aspects, but the lack of diversity for sets and the less than stellar ending makeup hurt the potential a lot. At just over 1 hour long, A Bucket of Blood comes off more like a really good episode of The Twilight Zone rather than a feature-length film. When you get right down to it, A Bucket of Blood holds a solid 3 dead cats out of 5. It's not bad, it's not great, but fans of this genre will definitely find something to enjoy with this one. So if you're interested in this one, go ahead and watch it! Seriously, it's public domain, and pretty easy to find. You can look it up on YouTube. Well, thank you all for watching. I've been Decker Shado, and remember, life is an obscure hobo bumming a ride on the omnibus of art. What the fuck does that even mean?
man, like that was the greatest gas I ever heard.
Crazy, what did he say?
Didn't you hear him?
No, man, I'm too far out.